Okay, we are going to go over a balayage technique that I like to do when I'm creating a multi-dimensional balayage. First thing I'm going to do is section off the client's hair before I even go mix up hair color. First, I'm going to determine where her natural part is going to be. I prefer to work around a natural part, mostly because natural parts tend to be dominant, but if a client part specifically, then of course we'll work with that. Next, she does want a money piece, so I'm actually going to section off the fringe area. Now on this guest of mine, her natural hairline right above her temples goes pretty far back, and it's very low density around there. So while she does want brightness, I want to be conscientious of the shape of her hairline naturally, and I don't want to overexpose any holes in her hair color or show too much space in there. So she does have a lot of baby hairs right around the face as well. So I'm going to, you will see when I color it, I'm going to actually tease those out a little bit. That'll give the depth around that hairline that goes back. Give it some shadow, give it some coverage, while also giving her a beautiful natural money piece that is diffused nicely, goes with her natural hairline, but yet is very comfortable for her to wear, and it's going to be very attractive and customized for her specifically. So I'm just continuing to find that natural fringe area. I like to blouse the hair or pinch and push up to find where it's going to separate from the sides as well as the top. There's about an inch and a half space from the front of the hairline on the forehead to the top of the head. That whole area right there, there's me blousing, is going to be pinned off and separated, and that's going to be her money piece. I am going to take my time and really look and study her face, study her hairline, study if that's the amount appropriate in density for a money piece right there, and if that's going to be enough of a pop. So do not hesitate when you're sectioning, especially around the hairline, because that is what the guest sees the most. Do not hesitate to take your time a little bit and really study the guest, especially if this is a first time color on a particular guest or your first time doing this guest. You really want to get to know their features, get to know their hairline and their hair as well. See, there's her face. I want to open up her face. She's got beautiful tan, beautiful skin color. Again, she doesn't have a whole lot of density in this particular area because of her hairline. You can kind of see how it's kind of thin and exposed beyond her forehead. So we want to make sure we're complementing that, not drawing too much attention, while also still being able to give her that money piece. You can tell I really enjoy talking to my guests and helping them feel comfortable and beautiful and feel like they can trust what I'm going to do by paying attention to them and engaging with them. So here I am moving on to the other side. I'm going to do the exact same process. If their part is off to the side and not down the center, one side will be a smaller piece of their fringe while the other side will be a little bit bigger. You do want to make sure that this is going to happen because when the hair parts and comes over, there tends to be a tendency of more hair covering and overshadowing or blocking the pop of the look that you're going for. So that's where I like to work with a natural part or a side part if they have a specific side part. So here I am sectioning off the sides, and what this part is it's the fringe is separated out. And it's just top of the head to just behind the ear. When I'm doing balayages, I do like to come back behind the ear a little bit, particularly if the guest has low density on the sides. A lot of fine hair women do have low density on the sides. Balayages should be very clean and precise. Therefore, they do need very clean lines in your separations. in your partings, excuse me. We will continue to separate and section off clean lines the two back sections. You will see all four quadrants are sectioned off cleanly, and I left the hair fringe in the front out for her money pieces, as I will start there. That'll be the first application of my color. Here we are beginning in that front money piece, and you can see I am combing backwards, not necessarily teasing, I am just combing those little baby hairs out of my way. Now I'm just spraying them down with water just for some added control. What I don't want to do is put too much lightener on those baby hairs, as they're very fragile, and like I said earlier, we're going to use that to give her hairline some depth. Now I'm just going to paint on, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start right above the previous color, and as you can see, I'm going to brush backwards up the hairline to get a nice perfect blur, and then I'm going to take a little bit and I'm going to pull it down through the previous color. And then I'm going to start kind of milking that. So you can see I'm making sure it's fully saturated all the way through, about midsection down. And then we're really going to take our time to really blur that to her zone 1. Now I like to use this 2-finger method. There's very little pressure in between my fingers. I can barely feel the hair. And what that's going to do is it's going to make sure the saturation is all the way through without making it too oversaturated. I'm also pushing up against into that zone 1 for that nice blur. This gives a very clean blur, no spotting, saturation's all the way through. That lightener stays nice and creamy. And I'm actually going to change this. You'll see this later in the video. I put it on cotton. I end up getting concerned about this because the hair's right on her eyebrow. I don't want to lighten her eyebrow by accident. So you'll see later in the video that I end up putting them in foils. There's another reason I put them in foils, is to make sure those highlighted money pieces get nice and bright for us. Moving on to the other side. And I'm going to do the exact same process. So I have my clean comb. I'm going to comb those little baby hairs out of our way. Again, just taking my time to make sure that everything's nice and clean and precise. So taking a little bit of lightener on the edge of my brush, painting that midsection right above the previous color, making sure I get it loaded with lots of product. I'm going to start blurring it up to zone 1, pushing it backwards up the hair strand into our zone 1. Very light pressure when we do this. I'm just laying the color onto the hair and just very gently, very softly pushing it upwards. And when I push it upwards, pay attention to my brush. You'll notice it goes in a circular motion. As I push up, I'm also pushing up in a circular motion, and that gives a very fluid, soft stroke on the hair. Here I am again using my 2-finger method and using clean fingers. I've got a towel in my apron, you'll see, as I'm constantly keeping myself clean. But I'm using that 2-finger method to gently push the product through, make sure it's very clean, blur and clean diffusion. Laying it down over that cotton, which again, you will see that I change it to a foil here pretty soon. Now note that I really take my time in precision right around the hairline when it comes to color. A couple of reasons, that's what the guest sees. So it's very important that you get your application precise, you get it clean, you get it well saturated, make sure it's nice and bright, especially money pieces. Here comes the foil, changed my mind. Especially when it comes to money pieces. If it's a diffused money piece and not a foil directly to the scalp, if it's a diffused balayage money piece, you really want to make sure that your diffusion is very clean and well saturated and very blurred and soft. Because again, the guest sees that. Everybody sees that when they're talking to the guest face to face. They're going to look at it directly. You'll notice as I move throughout the rest of the hair, I am going to fast forward it, but I do move faster and I am more efficient with the time. I'll be precise when it comes to working around the hairline, around the whole head, or at the top, because again, that's what people see. But the rest of it, I'm just going to work to get the color applied and get a decent diffused blur. Here I am working on the first side portion. Hopefully you guys can see me okay. And we're going to work this entire balayage in a diagonal back sectioning all the way around the head. Here I am again combing away those baby hairs. On this particular client, her baby hairs are excessively curly. The rest of her hair is bored straight. So that's another reason why I chose not to highlight or put lightener on these hairs, as they're very, very curly. So one, they're very fragile, but they're also, she fights frizz. So why would I want to make that worse for her? So here you've got a clean brush, and what I do is that when I take the lightener, I cut it across the top of the bowl, so you have a nice ribbon, and then I put that ribbon on the brush. You just saw that roll, that perfect roll ribbon, and as you can see, it applies a perfect balayage highlight line. So I go through and I just get that lightener on the midsection first, and then I go up with that roll along each side. On this particular client, I'm going to work in a W style balayage, which means each end of that triangle section, each side of the triangle section has a nice bold balayage highlight, but then I have one minor or delicate line through the middle going up as well, and you can see it forms like a W. So just like on our money pieces, I am milking that lightener very gently through front and back, and then I'm taking my 2-finger peace sign and I'm gently blurring the balayage highlights up into zone 1. Okay, working my way up. This is along her parietal ridge, as well as going into that front hairline money piece section. So I'm going to section off the underneath 2 sides areas of the hair, creating a triangle section. Again, still working in that diagonal back, but these pieces I'm leaving out is what's going to be left for dimension for her. And as you can see, I am pinching the hair together in my fingers down below, pulling it towards me. It is elevated almost all the way up towards me. And again, applying my lightener midsection and then working up to each side very gently. There's very little pressure going on from my brush to the hair. I'm just gently applying the lightener. You will also see when I apply the lightener initially onto the hair that I'm using a flat brush. But once I go to the sides, I bring my brush vertical to lay against each edge. Now as I go up, every other section I might do a W, or this one is a little bit more of a full application across, like a slice almost, but again very blurred. So again, here I am saturating all the way through, using very light pressure I'm not smashing that color in between my fingers. My fingers have a very light pressure. Same with this, it's like I'm milking the color through very gently, using my clean fingers and using my fingers to diffuse. And what that does is it gets rid of any chunkiness in your lightener, kind of helps re-cream your lightener onto the hair, but it also just makes sure that the lightener itself has a very soft diffusion going into the hair, while also making sure it stays well saturated. Okay, next section, we're getting to the top. I always like to make sure I'm working in sections that are about as wide as my peace sign on one hand with my two fingers, my forefinger and my middle finger. That just keeps things nice and controlled and keeps your color application consistent. So again, I'm pinching the hair in my fingers and I'm lifting the hair up, pulling it towards me so there is lots of elevation. You can again see that roll of color on my brush, and my brush is staying nice and clean. Notice also that my hand is at the same elevation as the hair is, my hand and arm. What that's going to do is that's going to help keep that sweeping technique very gentle and very soft. Working on the other side now. Again, my brush was flat and then I went vertical as I move up the hair. That keeps that highlight line very controlled and precise. And as I get into zone 1, you'll notice I use my brush in kind of a small soft circular motion, brushing it up into zone 1 and pulling it down at the same time. Here I am diffusing that midsection. She wants a very rooted look. She wants a lot of pop of color through her ends, but she wants a lot of dimension left in zone 1 and zone 2 with a lot of root, but yet at the same time we do want fresh highlight up in zone 1 to keep the color from, to keep the color lasting a long time. She is not a regular visitor. She does not color her hair often. She'll come in from treatments about every other month, but she wants to make sure this color can stay fresh and lived in for a long time. So that's how we do that. I'm adding more color because I find that through that midsection, as I was milking it through, it became very thin, and if it's not a good saturation, then it won't process evenly. I'm paying attention to these money pieces and I'm finding they're actually being very stubborn. They did not want to lighten very well for me at all. So I'm reapplying some color to them to make sure the saturation is consistent and the lightener stays moist. You notice that they are on foils, but not in foils. I want this whole look to be air processed consistently, but I did want those pieces to stay off her skin and out of her eyes and eyebrows. So here I'm working the top. Again, working in a diagonal back, you see I get to that top corner. I just comb out, section out the bottom sides of it to again create that triangle shape that we want. Up here, I'm probably not going to apply quite as much because she does want that really rooted look up at the top and she wants a lot of pop of color throughout the inside of the hair. So this is a very small section. It does not need a lot of color. Getting distracted by chatting with her. So on this one, I pretty much just do the V balayage. A little bit through the center. Really concentrating saturation on those highlight pieces. And I'm keeping the hair elevated up, and as I work around the sides, I'm elevating it up higher. That's going to keep it from bleeding too much. Look at that nice V. Saturation, saturation. This is where she wants all that color, all that lightened blondie blonde. Clean hands, clean gloves, milking it through. I do take the time to quickly clean my hands between each balayage section. All right, we're going to move on to the back. I did the same application throughout the 2 back sections and on the other side. And here's what that would look like. Same exact process. The 2 top corners of the 2 back sections are just the V's. Everything else is kind of a back and forth between a W and a slice look. One thing to keep in mind is your guest experience. Balayages are a very messy artwork. You get color everywhere. It is very important that you keep their cape clean so that way they feel comfortable in moving around and not spreading color or risk getting color on their own personal belongings. Check to see if your guest needs anything to help keep them comfortable while they process. It is natural for a balayage to process for anywhere from 45 minutes minimum up to an hour. Lightener does start to deactivate after 1 hour. So if the balayage is not quite there yet, you may need to reapply your lightener, especially at those last bits. Hot tip too, have multiple bowls at your station, one starting with 20 volume wherever you're starting, going up to 40 volume and having them ready to mix as you need. Once the processing is done, I like to pre-tone with purple shampoo when I wash the lightener out first, and I let this sit for a few minutes while I go mix up our toners. After I am done with the pre-tone with the violet shampoo and washing it out, I'm going to bring my guest back to my station, and I'm actually going to give her a quick blast blow dry. Now, because she wants a multi-dimensional balayage, that means we pre-lightened first, and then we're going to be going through and putting in a coppery warm tone to give it some dimension, as well as toning those blonde highlights that we want to really pop. Her cape was a little bit messy still, so I decided to give her a nice clean one. Again, all about that guest experience, making sure that they stay nice and clean. Towel drying really well to help speed up your process, your blow drying process. I am going to be using Pureology's Miracle Filler to help detangle. What I do love about this product is this is a great protein filler into all of the porous parts of her hair after we just lifted it. This is going to help her toner process evenly, and it's going to help her toner last a lot longer. So now I'm just going to detangle it and blow dry it. Now that she's fully blow dried, look how beautiful that balayage is. Very clean, very precise, very blurred. I have my 2 toners, actually my 1 toner, my copper warm toner, in a bowl. I'm going to apply this in foils with a bowl and brush. I'm going to apply this one first. I am whisking the Shades EQ really, really well. The more you whisk it, the more air you get through it, and the more gel-like it becomes, where it's easier to apply with a brush and into foils. This section, again, finding that part. Look at that bright money piece right there. Finding her part. Combing it out really well. Again, I really want to make sure the hair is nice and clean and controlled for me. Thinking about my plan, thinking about how I'm going to apply this. So I know you can't see it, but I am working in, again, diagonal back sections on the side. So here you can see it's at a slight diagonal back. And I'm not going to section the whole hair off because I'm actually going to try and work with its natural highs and lows. I'm going to go in and I'm taking about a 3/4 inch section. And I'm actually going to do what's called a slice, skip, slice, or chunky weave. Professional terms, we like to call it a slice, skip, slice. And really, some of it's going to be the highlighted pieces, some of it's going to be the depth pieces that we keep. You can tell I changed my mind here. I decided to take this whole front piece. I really wanted to create a good big depth of her copper color. Now I'm just going to apply that copper, and I'm just going to fully saturate from about zone 2 all the way down. And then I do kind of blur it up to the top a little bit. We don't really need to worry about blurring too much when it's on the natural hair because it's shades of Q, and in this area we don't see it. And I'm just going to fold that foil up, keep it separated from the rest of the hair, and move my way up. Going about 2 inches up higher, I'm going to take another, approximately 3/4 inch section. Clipping that hair out of my way. Gonna go, and this is where I'm gonna start my slice, skipping, slice. And this is gonna create nice, beautiful dimensional ribbons of the copper color throughout her hair, while also keeping a lot of that nice, bright blonde balayage we put in. Again, I'm not worrying too much about blurring it. I'm applying it almost to the top of the foil, not too much higher. We don't really need to worry about working into zone 1 too much. You can see I grab the ends of the hair and I fold them up into the foil, and I swirl that product all through the ends. That's how we get a nice, good, even saturation through the ends and a nice, clean foil. I'm going to continue working my way up. I do believe this might be my last section. I'm not sure. This section I'm actually just going through rather than doing a 3/4 inch slice. I actually just kind of looked at it and determined what I liked and weaved it out. There you can see that nice, good slice, skip, slice. It's only about 3 weaves of hair. Again, fully saturating those ends, especially since they're all folded up together. Up here at the top, you did notice I did blur it up a little bit. Again, mostly because that hair we are going to see in the end result. So we do want to make sure it's nice and soft and blended in there. So as I come up to the top, I do want to keep that nice blondie bit right at the very top. So I'm actually going to take very small amounts here. It is still kind of a chunky weave, kind of mixed with a medium weave, just to kind of keep that color trend going all the way up. But you can see those chunks are quite a bit smaller to kind of give it a softer ribbony effect as we come to the top, and to not take away too much of the blonde. We really want to keep as much of that blonde intermixed throughout the hair, especially throughout the top, as much as we can. Again, blurring because we are at the top of the hair and we see that part. Okay, side one complete, and we're going to continue that all the way through the rest of the hair. And this is what it's going to look like. I did forget to record the application of the blonde toner, but I apply the blonde toner all throughout the rest of the hair. After we wash and condition and treat the hair, I'm going to bring her back to my station and start applying and getting ready for our blowout. And again, because she had that curly frizz all around her hairline, we're going to use Surface Curls Smoothing Cream right around her frizzy hairline. And I'm going to go ahead, actually I think I apply that all over. I'm going to start blast drying her hair. Just getting it dry. When I work around the hairline, I like to really make sure I'm blow drying that hair, sweeping it around the face. What this does is it really controls the smoothness of the hair, especially those little curly bits, and it also gives a beautiful frame around the face. Gives them a little bit of that coverage that helps them feel a little bit more comfortable, and again, it just kind of gives it that beautiful framing flow. Again, the top around the fringe area, I'm going to blow dry opposite directions of her natural part. This is going to give it body, it's going to give any cowlicks control, and it's just going to create a beautiful shape. And again, coming into the other side, blow drying it opposite to give it that volume. Now I'm going to start sectioning off the hair. Her hair is probably about 75% dry. To get as much control as possible, I want to not get the hair too dry. We really want to keep some moisture in there. I like to work, when doing a blowout, I like to work the hair in 3 sections. Nape down, sides from the temple or hairline down, and then the top. So here we're going to start with the nape. And I've got my Epic brush because again I'm smoothing her out. I'm going to really use a lot of tension, especially around those curly areas, to really get them nice and smooth. Notice the way I fold this Epic brush. I'm really grabbing right on the head, and I'm really folding it and pulling it. There's a good tension. What I love about the Epic brush is that it is a wet brush, so it's a beautiful detangler. It's got the holes for ventilation to help the air flow and helps push water out, and it's heat resistant. We love the Epic brush here at the Hair Bar. So again, those curly hairlines, you'll notice I kind of push the hair out and really blow the blow dryer against those curls. It really helps get them nice and smooth. You'll also notice I go slow. You can't really see it in the video, but when your hand's on, you can see the water evaporate from the hair before your eyes when you go slow enough and you've got good tension. So my blow dryer is about an inch or more, inch to 2 inches away from the hair, and it's at a 45-degree angle going with the cuticle of the hair. You'll also see, you can't see it very well in the video, but you'll see it throughout the rest of the blowout, that when I blow dry the hair in any brush, even if I'm round brushing or using the Epic brush, I pretend that the hair is 2 inches longer than it is. So by the time I get to the ends, I keep pulling, keep going as the hair falls out. And what that does is that really guarantees that those ends get nice and smooth, that they are nice and controlled just like the rest of the hair, and we don't have funky bends or frizz throughout the length. Okay, moving on to the second section, like I said, around just above the temple down. Staying consistent with my size of section throughout the whole area. Again, keeping clean partings will prevent pulling and tangling of the brush in the secured section. So here I am, I'm instructing her how to do this herself, talking about those curly baby hairs around her hairline, how we're going to control those. So what I'm doing here, you can't see it, you should see it on the other side, is I go towards her face first, but then occasionally I bring it away from her face and I'm really focusing on pulling those little curly hairs and getting tension on those as well, not neglecting those. There you go, right there. That's what that's doing. That's getting those little curly baby hairs, pulling them and making sure they get the tension so they get nice and smooth as well. Taking my time, going past the final length of her hair to make sure everything stays nice and controlled and consistent. When I do use my Epic brush, I like to take angled sections with the brush rather than vertical. Vertical seems to tangle easier. Vertical is same thing, to tangle, but angled seems to really keep it tangle free, keeps it very controlled, and also creates a little bit of body at zone 1. And kind of it keeps a nice little bit swoop and bend in the lengths of the hair, so it's not just flat and straight. So I'm just going to repeat this all the way around. Here, now you can see that moisture just evaporating from the hair as we move nice and slow. You can almost see the cuticle sealing itself too by holding the blow dryer correctly and getting that good tension. Look at all that beautiful shine and smoothness it is creating. So here you'll be able to see how I control those curly baby hairs around her face. Again, sweeping it towards around her face for some beautiful framing and smoothness. But the way I'm grabbing it does grab those baby hairs pretty decently. Here I'm going against really getting those guys controlled. Look at that beautiful color. Look at that dimension too. Nice bright blondes and then that warm coppery ribbons throughout. And it's such a complementary color against her skin tone. This guest of mine has beautiful olive skin and that copper just really warms her up. I went to the other side because I noticed I hadn't dried it all the way, so you really want to make sure that once the heat is gone that it's fully dried, otherwise those curly pieces will just come right back. Here we're moving to the top, again working with her part. In the crown area, I like to kind of pull it up towards me to give it a little bit of volume. Working in the crown again, creating a little bit of volume, a little bit of lift throughout the crown, pulling it directly towards me, keeping it elevated. I go back and forth right in this little area because she's got a cowlick, and if we can go back and forth on the cowlick side to side, it neutralizes the growth pattern for them so they don't have that awkward cowlick split. So I'm kind of doing the same thing right up here. This is where her European hairline, I like to call it, that deep hairline is. So again, I'm going back and forth to really give it a neutral laying ground. I'm also working on those little baby hairs that are frizzy and curly and like to be temperamental for her. I really want to give them control for her. And then I'm going all the way down, slowing down my movements as I work down the hair shaft to give it extra smooth, extra shine, and extra softness. So working in that fringe, I'm pulling it towards her face, straight forward. Remember when I blasted her dry, we did go opposite directions to give it some volume. Here I'm doing that again. Not only does it give it volume, but again it creates a neutral laying ground for any growth patterns, and it gives it a little bit just more volume and framing. So I'm going to take that whole fringe section plus the top of the hair, and I'm going to lift it slightly up and pull it forward. Yes, the hair is in her face, and you just tell them that, and that's how it's done to get this particular finished look. Now I'm going to lift the hair straight up, and I'm going to come in underneath. This is going to make sure those hairs right around her forehead stay nice and smooth, but it's also going to give it that final finish, little bit of extra lift and volume that we'll want to keep the hair off the face. Since we blow dried it all forward, this just gives it a little oomph off her face. Now hopefully these show up pretty well, but if you can't see them very well, they are up on my Instagram. But this is the final look. I took an 1.25 inch barrel iron, and I just did some soft waves throughout. I did forget to record that, so I do apologize. Here's the other side view. So again, her dimensional balayage. We highlighted her quite a bit of her ends. We blurred everything up top, but we did blonde it out first, and then we went through with our two formulas of shades EQ, a copper, which we did a slice, skip, slice diagonal back foil throughout to give her those ribbons, and then in between all the foils I applied the toner onto her blondes. So that is the final look. Hope you guys enjoyed and learned something new today.